Oh, baby. What is up, everyone? Welcome to The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Lotzia, wishing all of you a good morning, especially my fellow millennials. Last night's absolutely perfect sing-along Super Bowl halftime show not only helped us forget we can't afford to buy a house or really anything for a whole 15 minutes, but it was also the moment we took control of the world. We are the old people now. We run this rock for the foreseeable future. Speaking of the future, the next 50 minutes are jam-packed with golf goodness, basketball beefcakes, and Canadians talking hockey. Doesn't get any better than that. Oh, but wait, there's more. We're going to get this party started with a Super Bowl hangover, reacting to the Rams' first championship in 22 years. Good morning to DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich, Jeff Ulrich, Matt Meiselman. Jeff rocking the blue hat. Is that because your blue Gatorade pick hit last night?
I was on purple, Emerson, but thanks for bringing that up, man. I really appreciate that. You know, if you tinted your screen, if you adjusted the settings, it looked purple. So I don't know. You could take a moral victory in that.
Yeah, hang in there, man. We're here for you. LA gets the win thanks to who else, guys? Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald. Kupp gets the MVP, but how are you feeling? If you had, say, a Donald MVP ticket, it was plus 1,400 on the DK Sportsbook yesterday, Jeff. When we talked about this last week, it was plus 1,600.
You should feel like a dope for betting a defensive player to win MVP. We told you all week. Don't bet the defensive players to win MVP. You weren't getting good value with Aaron Donald. I don't care what anybody says. Look what happened. The guy had a great game. He basically made a game-saving play at the end to win. What happened? You got nothing. You got nothing for it because Cooper Kupp is also on the Rams and also made the same plays. And whenever there's a tie to the runner, they're going to give it to the offensive player. So, yeah, I mean, I don't feel bad for you. You don't deserve anything. You bet a defensive player to win Super Bowl MVP in a game that's dominated by offensive players and studs and stars like Cooper Kupp out there making great catches. Aaron Donald's fantastic. He could have easily won it. He was on the same page as Cooper Kupp. They're never going to give it to him in that situation, though. So don't bet defensive players to win Super Bowl MVP.
All right, Pierce, how do you feel about this one? When Donald gave Joe Burrow that hard but legal shove out of bounds in the third quarter, it was the first stat he recorded in the box score.
No one cares. No one cares about Aaron Donald. And Jeff wasn't harsh enough. If you made that sucker bet, you're a loser. You knew not to pick a defensive player. You had no chance. He needed, and we talked about this last week, for a defensive player to win MVP. And it's not an MVP, by the way. If you thought that this was literally for the most valuable player, then you probably had no business making the bet anyway. It's a popularity bet. It goes to the most recognizable player with a big game. It's like a TV title in professional wrestling. It's not really going to the guy who has the biggest impact, or otherwise it would be the award for the player with the biggest impact. That's not what this is. It's a popularity contest. Kupp won. And you knew that he could have a lifetime performance on defense, and you would also need no one on offense at all to have a good game. And that was just very unlikely with the two offenses setting up. You knew that someone was going to be above average and end up winning. Maybe, you know, if the end of the game plays out a little differently, but whatever. You knew you weren't going to win.
All right, Matt, let's not act like he shouldn't have been in consideration, though, because after that mini fight, like, the beast was awoken, finished with a 17.5 pressure rate, 4 tackles, 3 quarterback hits, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, had the final 2 game-clinching plays.
Yeah, I mean, I do like disagreeing with these guys in general, but for this one, there's just no way. Like, I think we all talked about it all week that, sure, Aaron Donald had a chance, and maybe if one of his sacks turns into a fumble, maybe he gets a touchdown somewhere, like that was the scenario you needed. But we were all on the same page that just the odds were not high enough for that scenario. If I'm surprised about anything, it's that Stafford didn't win. Like, I kind of thought that could have gone either way between Stafford and Kupp. But I think what ultimately sealed it for Kupp is the fact that he scored the game-winning touchdown twice on the final drive. He got absolutely rocked, and then it didn't count on the first touchdown pass that he caught. And then he just went right back out there and scored again. I think after that whole sequence, it was at least somewhat obvious that Kupp was going to win. I think it could have gone to Stafford, but yeah, there was no way. Like, if you were sitting on an Aaron Donald ticket, you just didn't really understand what this MVP award was about, which is the player who kind of was the most popular on the winning team and was the face of the game, so to speak, for them. And that's never going to be a defensive player unless they do something totally miraculous. And Donald played extremely well and might have actually been the Rams' best player, but he came up well short of those standards.
Could have gone with the officials there on that last drive for the Rams. Could have gone with the Bengals defense as well. But Stafford and Kupp, guys, engineered an all-time great drive to win the damn thing, overcoming a few interceptions by LA signal caller. On the other side, though, you have Burrow, who gets sacked 7 times, tying a Super Bowl record and missing the over on his passing totals. What was your biggest takeaway between the two quarterbacks last night and their performances, Pierce?
Well, speaking of the officials, Stafford had a pretty ugly game, and it would have been a lot worse if he doesn't get bailed out on that 3rd and long inside the goal line. You don't get that phantom call, 4th and long in the red zone. That's a low probability shot. They turn the ball over on downs. He doesn't get that final touchdown. He doesn't have nearly the numbers that we expect. 7 yards per pass attempt, 2 interceptions. And we knew Burrow was going to struggle with the offensive line. We knew they would get a couple good drives, but I don't think there was any surprises here. There's some pretty mild, moderate performances by both quarterbacks. They didn't absolutely kill their team, but neither one of them really was the driving force. Sure, Stafford led that final drive, but as you mentioned, boy, there was a lot of yellow flags there at the end that really helped the hometown team win.
Yeah, Matt, I don't think this was like an all-time great Super Bowl or anything. Like, neither team really played as well as they could have. But talking just quarterbacks here, what stood out to you between Stafford and Joe Burrow?
Yeah, it was really just how normal they played. It's kind of what Pierce is saying. Like, this is basically what we expected from this game. Stafford made some big plays, and he also made some mistakes. And I think overall he was pretty average. Burrow was probably bad if you actually call the T. Higgins penalty that should have been offensive pass interference on the long touchdown where Jalen Ramsey's face mask was clearly grabbed. I mean, if that play is called correctly, sure, we can argue about the refs at the end of the game, but like that was a lot more egregious than the defensive holding on Cooper Kupp. I think the Kupp play probably shouldn't have been a penalty. It can be debated. It was close. The Higgins play is not debatable. Like, that was clearly offensive pass interference. And it wasn't even a good throw by Burrow on the play. Higgins just made a crazy move to not get called for that somehow. Like, overall, I think Burrow played below average. Stafford was about average. And, yeah, I guess that's a standout, maybe. I don't think there were too many people expecting that. It was sort of the way I thought it would go. But I did think both of them might have – I thought they would maybe play a little bit better than they did. It wasn't really a great game from either of them.
Yeah, Jeff, do you agree with that? You probably expected a little more out of these two dudes?
Stafford had the exact kind of game that I thought he would. He made I'll give him credit. I mean, the guy still has a live arm. But I mean, this is still the same Matthew Stafford that was in Detroit. He's just on a better team. He makes great throws, breathtaking throws, and then he makes silly mistakes. His interceptions were terrible. I mean, the one in the end zone was awful. And I mean, Pierce said, like, I'm sorry, like, that was not a holding call. That wasn't even. I mean, if you're calling that a holding call, that's flag football at that point. So. Absolutely got bailed out at the end of the game. The Rams got bailed out again. I mean, I think we could talk about that, how this team just has essentially gotten bailed out in like 3 of their 4 wins in the playoffs. But that's what the Bengals are too. I mean, the Bengals aren't like that good a team. They couldn't execute at the end. And yeah, Joe Burrow really didn't do anything spectacular either. But I think the thing you have to, the one sort of saving grace with the Joe Burrow performance is he was going up against the Rams defense, which to me is still like the more elite unit than the Bengals. Like, he was under pressure. He had the worst O-line. So Burrow, you can kind of give a slight pass to. He didn't have a good game, but I still think that, you give him a bit of a pass there. But I mean, Stafford did just enough to win. He needed to get a bit lucky again, but he did. And that's just football, man.
Well, besides an inactive Vernon Hargreaves coming out of nowhere to celebrate an interception with his Bengals teammates, like, who was your biggest surprise in Super Bowl 56, Matt?
Yeah, I guess it was the fact that Cam Akers just kept getting the ball. Like, there was nothing in this game that was
unreal.
There wasn't a positive player performance that really shocked me. T. Higgins is a really good receiver. I wasn't blown away or anything by the fact that he was good, and Jamar Chase was going to get more attention than him just because of how good of a season Jamar Chase had. But the Rams just kept giving Cam Akers the ball, and Henderson played really well in the first half, and there were a couple really good catches he made. So I guess it's one that the Rams, they ran the ball as much as they did in general because the running game couldn't get anything going. And then 2, that they kept Akers in when it was clear that he just doesn't have the explosiveness right now. Maybe the shoulder's bothering him. Maybe he's still not fully back from the Achilles injury. But yeah, what stood out to me was just I couldn't believe the play calling, although they did finally remedy it on the final drive with the Cooper Kupp end around, which I thought was the best play call of the season from Sean McVay. So they finally figured it out. But for a while there, it was looking pretty bleak for them.
Yeah, I mean, smart move by McVay there. You go to your best player in like the biggest moment of the game. Who was the biggest surprise in your eyes, Jeff?
I look, find someone in this world who loves you as much as Sean McVay loves Cam Akers, man. Bryson Hawkins, like, what? I mean, I swear, this guy just got rolled out of like a creative player on the Rams sidelines after Kendall Blanton went down. I mean, I talked about Blanton and potentially being like a really good fantasy value, and obviously he got hurt. But I mean, Hawkins, again, it just exposed the Rams a little bit. He shows up with 4 catches. Most people probably didn't even know he was active, and it just kind of exposed one weakness on the Bengals was they don't cover tight ends very well. They don't cover that middle position of the field very well at all. And it kind of got exposed a little bit. I mean, Hawkins made some plays for them. I mean, they needed guys like Skoranek and Hawkins to just make a couple catches once Odell went down, and they came through. And honestly, that kind of is a bit of an underrated story of this game, just them being able to move the chains with those guys. So Bryson Hawkins, to me, biggest surprise performance of this Super Bowl.
All right, Pierce, what about you?
There really wasn't a true big surprise when we think about that. Like, oh, who's the guy that came out of nowhere and completely changed the face of the game? There was guys that surprised us slightly and had good performances. But for me, the biggest surprise, which really isn't a positive, was when Odell Beckham got injured. He was looking pretty good. Jeff was with me. We didn't think he was going to have a good game at all. But the way that game started, it looked like it was going to be the Beckham show. If he would have stayed healthy, they may have completely blown out the Bengals. Him and Kupp together would have probably been unstoppable. That was a huge thing that kept the Bengals in this game. So that was the shocking moment when he went down. It didn't even look that serious, and he never came back. So he surprised me the way that he played, and then it was surprising to see him go down.
Yeah, time for you three now. This is going to be my favorite part of the show. Time for you three to take a victory lap. So I want all of you to kind of sit back and relax and allow me, exhale. Pierce, let's start with you. On Friday, you gave us the same game parlay that included Stafford, 2 interceptions, and that was a late addition to this. Mixon over 64.5 rushing yards, under 39.5 receiving yards, Higgins over 74.5 yards, and under Cam Akers, 69.5 rushing yards for a nice plus 2,200 payout. Didn't really have to sweat that one, did you?
No, it was pretty easy. I thought I was pretty confident with that pick. I also wanted to add that if you read my DK Nation articles this week, my NBA picks went 4-1, and my NASCAR picks went 4-0 last week. So let's do a couple more victory laps while we're at it.
All right, I love it. And do not forget, you will have competition from Jeff this week on the NASCAR DK Nation circuit. So just, look over your shoulder there, dude. Speaking of Jeff, hey, dude, you were huge on T. Higgins all week. 2 touchdowns, hitting the century mark in yards. That's a good thing. Dude was in line for MVP. So please take a bow for us.
I mean, look, T. Higgins, we definitely, Pierce and I both mentioned we liked Higgins. I kind of like Boyd as well. Higgins definitely paid off for us. I mean, I got to admit, though, I mean, you guys didn't mention, my Scotty Sheppard went from the Phoenix Open, but also, look, the Jason Tatum 3-pointer prop hit. He hit 4 3-pointers against the Hawks. The Rams only had 3 total touchdowns. That's plus 160. That was, like I said, that was my favorite bet of the entire Super Bowl. And I think you laughed at it too, Emerson. So, yeah, I'm going to victory lap that.
Yeah, I did laugh at it because he has sucked recently shooting threes. But once again, you proved that you are the smartest man on this team. By the way, side note, the Rams attempting the Philly special without Nick Foles. How sad was that?
It's just pathetic. Absolutely.
Maddie.
What are you doing? It's embarrassing.
Right? Maddie, you were fading the Rams running game like all week. Brilliant outlook by you, but you had to have thought that they would get more than 30 yards from their running backs, right? I mean, Cooper Kupp had almost like 25% of 30 yards with a 7-yard rush.
Yeah, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure if I even mentioned the rushing success of the Rams whatsoever. Almost all of my analysis was just about the distribution of the workload. Like, I don't even know if I even thought about if they would do well or not. It had almost nothing to do with that. I just didn't see any way that Akers was going to play every down. And the 16.5 rushing attempts line was basically dependent on him being the every down back. We saw Henderson get in there early. Michelle didn't play as much as I thought he would, but that was largely due to Henderson. So, yeah, I mean, this kind of worked out. I also had over 4.5 Rams to have a rushing attempt. That was a fun one that paid like 2-1. I think we had to sweat that one till the end for the Cooper Kupp end around. So maybe I'd kind of forgotten about that one until I checked the box score after the game. But I was happy to hit that one. And then the weirdest moment of the game for me that I won on was Johnny Hecker plus 700 to have a touchback. We got that one late in the second quarter, so overall it was a nice game.
Yeah. Did you just respectfully decline taking a victory lap with the running game?
Maybe.
Yeah. I like that about you.
I mean, I'll take a victory lap for Matt. He was the one who pointed out that Akers' attempts was way overpriced at the beginning of last week.
Yeah.
And he's the one who got me on it. So to me, that was like the most mispriced prop on the board. Cam Akers at 16.5. That was on the board all week. We talked about it. I just stole Matt's idea and basically talked about it all week.
It was 14.5 Super Bowl
victory lap
warning,
for him.
so we did something. Someone caught on eventually.
Matt, thank you for helping Jeff. Because of that, he can put food on the table for his family this week. You saved Jeff's life and his marriage. All right, guys, there's no time like the present. So let's head on over to the DK Sportsbook, where we've got the Chiefs and the Bills at plus 400 to win the AFC next season, with the Bengals at plus 650. Rams are the favorites in the NFC at plus 450. Your initial thoughts on odds for each conference here? Is there anyone like too high, too low, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, look, the AFC, I think, is a pretty loaded conference. I think, the Bengals at plus 650, they're just, they're the definition of overvalued right now, obviously coming off the Super Bowl. I don't know why the Broncos are plus 1,000. I assume that's just on some Aaron Rodgers news, but the value is probably looking at teams like the Colts, Chargers, and yes, even maybe the Titans, if they can perhaps get rid of the Ryan Tannehill anchor contract. But that's where the value would lie for me in the AFC. The NFC is a lot different story. I mean, we've got the Aaron Rodgers news. I'm not going to take the Rams again. There's just the definition of overvalued right now. But you've got teams down there who could certainly bounce back quickly. It's going to be a much weaker division in the NFC. I think you can go really deep in that division and look at teams like maybe even the Vikings, because if Aaron Rodgers leaves, I mean, there's like a power vacuum in that conference, in my opinion, and it could be wide open for some good value there on the NFC side.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were implying like Aaron Rodgers doing a Brett Favre thing and leaving Green Bay and eventually ending up like in Minnesota. Ooh. I
was not, but that could happen, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it certainly could. Hey, anything could happen, right? Pierce, who do you think? Whose odds do you think may be too short, too long?
I think the Chargers stands out to me at plus 2,500. The biggest problem with them last season, well, two problems. They were inconsistent. You never really could count on them. But you look at what the Rams did this season. They got a little bit more consistent during the playoffs and had a pretty favorable road in the playoffs, and they won the Super Bowl. So the Chargers, if they could just got into the playoffs, who knows what could have happened. They need to improve their running defense, but really that is it. The secondary is fine. Their offensive line could use a little bit more of an upgrade, but they've got all the weapons. They've got a quarterback that's only going to get better. That team is right there, and at 2,500, and in a division, I know you still got the Chiefs there, but we've seen wildcard teams make their way through the playoffs, so Chargers are who I am looking at early on.
Yeah, it's Super Bowl odds for the Chargers, by the way, plus 2,500. Same odds as the Patriots there. Oh, and the Cardinals and the Colts. Matty, whose odds kind of pop for you here?
Yeah, the team that stands out to me as the opposite of the Bengals, the team that is really good, I think, but just couldn't get it together this season, is the Baltimore Ravens, who dealt with, I think, more injuries than just about anyone. And if this team is healthy next year, if Lamar Jackson's healthy, 10-1 for the AFC, 20-1 for the Super Bowl. Like, I think they're as good as anyone. And I'm not sure if too many people would have even disagreed with that before the injuries started piling up for them. The Ravens beat the Chiefs to start this season. If you just looked at what their betting lines were for their games, like, they were getting a lot of respect game by game. And then Lamar got banged up, and then they basically lost their entire defense. So if the Ravens get it together, they're a team that seems to draft well. I don't know how much we can read into that as a predictive thing, but it seems like the Ravens have done well in off seasons, and it just, to me, it's the buy low spot. Like, they underachieved by more than just about anyone this past season.
Yeah, as long as they get those contract negotiations banged out with Lamar, right? Because you don't want that hanging over your head. Let's get to our Super Cut sensation. To no one's surprise, our Super Fantasy Player of the Week, presented by Super Cups, is none other than Cooper Kupp. His 8 catches, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. Look at that line. 7 rushing yards, giving him a Super Bowl best 30 DK fantasy points, capping off a historic, legendary season from this bona fide fantasy stud, winning Offensive Player of the Year and Super Bowl MVP. Jeff, who's in a good position to be the breakout fantasy star next season?
Man, I mean, it's a good question, but I'm going to go with A.J. Brown. I think that A.J. Brown is a player who we have seen dominate like good cornerbacks, bad cornerbacks, and he's really just carried that Tennessee Titans passing offense to the point where he's like been the only player in the game for them at points. So I think he's a player who could get insane targeting, just like Cooper Kupp. He's able to dominate good cornerbacks and bad cornerbacks. And I think he's on a team in Tennessee who's still going to be throwing in spots because their defense still is kind of streaky. So I'm going to go with A.J. Brown next year. If this guy can stay healthy and on the field, he's got a very good shot of being like a top 3 fantasy player at his position.
Pierce, what do you think next year? Who could be the breakout fantasy star?
Well, if Aaron Rodgers goes to Minnesota, then I might have to target the receivers there, but that's a bit of an if. I'll go with what we know for certain. That's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are still going to be there. They're at the beginning of their careers. While the Ravens offense is surely going to get better next season, the Steelers might improve. The defenses in the AFC North are still pretty rough. The AFC probably really isn't that great of a division, and I can see Jamar Chase in year 2 absolutely exploding every single week. We probably haven't even seen all the different dimensions of his game yet. We've seen the big plays, but what happens when he starts to get 10, 15 targets per game? It's going to be pretty insane.
Matt, who has potential to be the breakout fantasy star next year?
I'm just going to stick to the tight end script that I think most people are familiar with, and Kyle Pitts, where rookie tight ends just tend to not be that good, and yet despite that knowledge, everyone just kind of assumed that Kyle Pitts was good enough to break through that. And he had his moments, but clearly he needed more time to become a reliable NFL receiver, and that really is what he is. Like, Kyle Pitts is called a tight end, but he's basically a wide receiver. So maybe that's why people thought he would be better as a rookie, but still he has to know how to block. He has to know how to run over the middle, different than college. And by next year, I think that he'll have most of that figured out. So even if Matt Ryan's his quarterback, I think Kyle Pitts still likely is up there with the other tight ends this year, where this past season he was more in the second or third tier. I think we see him turn into an elite player next year.
Gentlemen, that was extremely fun. We love you guys for all the football knowledge that you have dropped on us this season. I'm sure we'll talk much more futures as the weeks go on and on. It is kind of sad we don't have real NFL football until August again, but we will do NBA building blocks right after this break. We got a 9-game slate around the NBA tonight. We got 2 dudes here to talk about it. DraftKings contributors Nick Fryer, new to the show this morning. Matt Meiselman, back on your screen as well. Let's do NBA building blocks, best DFS and sportsbook plays on this schedule. Best guard to build your DFS lineup around. Who's it going to be, Nick?
Yes, there are a lot of good options, like high-price options tonight, but I think for guard, my favorite play is kind of in that mid-tier range, near value, at 5.9K, going up against the Spurs tonight. I like Ayo Dosunmu a lot. This game has the highest total on DraftKings Sportsbook, and he's put up big numbers in his last couple games. And LVII is out tonight, which leads to a lot of opportunities. I know we don't see usage kind of go up a ton for Dosunmu in these situations, but in these last 2 games that he's played, posted a double-double, nearly had a triple-double, and that was on the second leg of a back-to-back too. Spurs also ranked 25th in DK fantasy points allowed to opposing point guards this season. So when I look at Dosunmu tonight, I feel like he's a guy who has a floor of 5 times value.
Maddie, where are you going here?
I'm looking at that same game, actually, and DeJounte Murray no longer has Derek White in his backcourt. Even though he's $11,000, if you look at his last 2 games, I mean, the price is not even close to what he should be. He's got 144 fantasy points over the last 2 games. But I just still am down on the Bulls' defense. They actually may play better defense with Zach LaVine out of the game, but I still think this is a team that's going to struggle defensively. And Murray has this usage bump now with no Derek White. I think this is a game that should be close. And this also could be a slate where it becomes easier later in the day to pay up for guys. We have some questionable players. So Also, if people want to play Jokic and the other more common expensive players, I think Murray might be a little less popular, but this is just a really good matchup, and the situation without Derek White really helps him.
All right, so what are you doing here at forward? Is there a guy that needs to be in your lineup, Matt?
I don't know if there's anyone that's that obvious, but I think DeMar DeRozan is just kind of a go-to choice at this point when Zach LaVine's not playing, and that's really the big deal here. DeRozan's price is north of $10,000, which if you would have said that before the season, I think just about everyone would have thought that's insane, but clearly DeRozan has reached a new level, both in terms of his scoring efficiency and just the volume of shots he's taking, and this should be an up-tempo game. Derek White was also probably the Spurs' primary defender that would be used to try to slow down just about anyone. The Spurs got a lot worse defensively at the deadline too, so this game should be very up-tempo. You don't have LaVine there. The scoring could be pretty concentrated on the Bulls side, so the cheaper guys look good too, like the Sumu. Vucevic is in a good spot, but I think DeRozan really at forward is kind of an elite play for this slate.
Is there an obvious choice at forward, Nick?
It turns out there is, because DeMar DeRozan is my top guy for this one too. If you want some savings though, in this game too, I think Keldon Johnson at 5.9K is a good option there as well. But like Matt was saying, DeRozan is a great option here going up against his old team. I know we've seen him already, but still, revenge game. Anytime you see a star in that kind of situation and it's not a blowout potential spot, I like it. Again, highest total on DraftKings Sportsbook. And I didn't talk about this so much with the Sumo, but the Spurs are 5th in pace, so this is a pace-up spot for the Bulls, who are like middle of the pack, like 13th in terms of pace. And the Spurs, like the Bulls, are just outside the bottom 10 in terms of defensive efficiency. Again, we talked about it before, no Zach LaVine tonight. DeRozan has a ridiculous 37.1 usage rate in those situations, and he averages 1.31 DK fantasy points with LaVine off the floor. Only to be outdone by Vucevic in that spot, but outside of that, I mean, 1.31 DK fantasy points per minute. I'm going to take that with DeRozan every time.
Nick, neither one of you guys mentioned the Greek Freak there at forward, but he does have center eligibility. Is that a direction you would consider going in?
Generally, no. Giannis is usually a guy who, as much as provides a lot of value and everything, don't get me wrong, he's a guy that I'm usually not leaning towards as much. I'd rather go with Jokic tonight if you're gonna go and do a pay up spot. I know no Embiid, usually that's the guy I'm going with of the three. But Jokic, I do understand if you have apprehension because of what he did last time against Orlando, and this is a potential for a blowout spot. The two guys that I'm looking to more, again, in that mid 5 to 6K range. I like Hassan Whiteside a lot tonight if Rudy Gobert doesn't play, but he is questionable, so you got to make sure you're following along at DK Live to make sure that you get the updates there. Whiteside has grabbed 35 rebounds in his last 2 games, 50.25 DK fantasy points, then 44.5. He's going up against the Rockets, an up-tempo matchup for any team in the NBA, and they aren't at all defensively efficient too. So, and they're giving up the most DK fantasy points to opposing centers. So it's a great spot for Whiteside. Could be a little chalky too, admittedly. Another guy who's in that same price range is Andre Drummond going up against the Kings. This is his Brooklyn debut. He's not on the injury report right now. I know LaMarcus Aldridge isn't either, but we don't have any of Brooklyn stars going tonight because this game is in Brooklyn. And Sacramento is not great in terms of limiting DK fantasy points against opposing centers. And Domantas Sabonis, as much as I like the Kings tonight, he's not going to help in that situation either.
Yeah, that's right. And the Kings also make you want to roster Drummond because they're really bad at rebounding the basketball. Matt, is center a pay-up spot for you tonight?
I think it might be. So I actually do have some interest in Giannis. I think the blowout is going to scare people away. So doing some kind of stack where you include Giannis and Yusuf Nurkic in the game together, I think that could be a really contrarian move that just almost no one is doing. And if this game does stay close, the upside for Giannis is huge. The upside for Nurkic is huge. I do think it's worth mentioning, though, that the Bucks are on the front end of a back-to-back. They are playing the Blazers, who have kind of gutted their roster at this point. They could hold Giannis out tonight, even though he's only listed probable. It's not an injury tag where you really are concerned. But the Bucks do play at home against the Pacers tomorrow. So if Giannis doesn't play, I think we have to look at Holiday, we have to look at Middleton, Portis, and then Nurkic and everyone else on the Blazers becomes more appealing too because there's less of a blowout chance. So in that case, it's kind of chalky, and then you like it for different reasons. But if Giannis does play, I think Giannis with Nurkic as a contrarian game stack, that's still a situation that I want to look towards.
All right, so where do you go in the value department, Matt? Who's the best option there?
There are a lot of guys who are extremely cheap that I think you can make a case for, which is why I think paying up on this slate does make a lot of sense. Quentin Grimes with Rj Barrett out of the starting lineup and just out of the lineup in general. He's been out for a few games now. Grimes is only $3,000 and he's actually been starting. So he might be too obvious. Like, I'm not really sure what the ownership looks like here, but if there isn't a ton of other value that opens up, I think we have a few guys in the 4K range that are viable, but Grimes is clearly ahead of the pack right now. So if nothing fundamentally changes about this slate going up to lock, I think you just look at Grimes and say, this is a min-price player, decent usage rate, can score some points, and he's playing a ton of minutes now. It's kind of hard to pass him up. So unless something really changes where there are more injuries coming up, I think Grimes is like the best guy down in that bottom end.
Hey, Nick, where are you looking for a value?
Yeah, I think Grimes is a great option because the Thunder are not good at defending opposing point guards from a DFS perspective. And that's why I actually landed on Kemba Walker in the same game. He's at 4.3K. As much as I do like the under a lot in this one, I like Walker because he's seen an increase in shot volume with RJ Barrett out. And that should come as no surprise to anybody. I did highlight this a little bit on DK Playbook in the NBA cheat sheet for today. RJ Barrett off the floor this season. Kemba Walker has the second highest usage rate at 25%, and he produces 1.1 DK fantasy points per minute. Also second in that category as well. Both marks are only second on the team to Julius Randle. So I think as much as I like the under in this one a lot, which I did highlight on DK Playbook as well, I still like Walker as a great source of value tonight.
All right, cool. So let's go to the DK Sportsbook here, Nick. Your favorite player prop is what?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the sumo in this one. I looked at this game, you see the high total and everything, and I'm thinking, okay, well, DeJounte Murray, Matt was talking before about how no Derek White, then, DeMar DeRozan, no Zach LaVine. But then as I'm looking through, I see DeSumo at 24.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. And I was like, okay, this one jumps out to me right away, knowing what he's done in the last couple games. And the only reason I don't have the double-double as my favorite, because he did come close to the triple-double last time out. He had the double-double the game before. In that near triple-double on the second leg of a back-to-back, he wasn't even a double-double in the end. He came like 2 rebounds short and an assist short. I do think it's worth getting a little bit of exposure to that. But if you're looking for a whole unit bet, I think my favorite player prop is him getting at least 25 points plus rebounds, assists tonight against the Spurs for a lot of the same reasons that I highlighted earlier about Spurs in terms of pace, defensive efficiency. But yeah, DeSumo is my guy tonight.
Matty, who are you looking at for favorite player prop?
So I'm fading something that just happened recently. Kyle Kuzma had a triple-double 2 games ago, and then he put up 7 assists the next game. I'm not really buying that Kuzma is just going to turn into an elite passer at this point in his career. He's shown no sign of doing that. And a typical game for Kuzma has 1, 2, maybe 3 assists. I know they traded a bunch of players away, but we have the under for assists at 4.5 at plus 125. Getting plus money to that extent on under 5 assists for a guy who basically has never really been a passer before, I think that's a really good opportunity to just sell high on a situation where the assists came in 2 games. I think it was a bit of a fluke. And I think what kind of happened too is Kuzma had 6 or 7 assists in the game with the triple-double. And then they were just like, let's get the guy a triple-double. That's just something that's going to happen sometimes. It's cool to get triple-doubles for some reason. So I think in a normal game, Kuzma winds up around 2, 3, or 4 assists. And 4.5 at plus 125 is pretty good value.
All right, before you guys take off, let's get your favorite game total or spread. Talking NBA here on the DK Sportsbook, Matt.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure if this one's still up because we just got some news that Lou Dort is out. The Thunder are playing the Knicks, and it may be off the board, but I'll go with it anyway because I don't think it'll move too much once that one comes back. The Knicks are -8 at home against OKC, and something I've been harping on for about a week now is that Rj Barrett is not a good enough player to make the Knicks any worse when he doesn't play. So the Knicks don't need him, essentially. I think Quentin Grimes is just as competent. I think Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier, and Alec Burks, they all can do the same stuff. The Knicks did just blow a game to Portland, but they beat Golden State on the road before that. So it's not like the Knicks have been all bad recently. And laying 8 points against this version of the Thunder that doesn't have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Lou Dort, those are the 2 best players on Oklahoma City. So the Knicks should be double-digit favorites. Maybe we see it get there at some point, but the line was only -8 as of just a couple minutes ago.
Nick, favorite game total or spread?
Yeah, I like the Kings as favorites against the Nets. It opened up at -4, but now it's at -2.5. Look, I know the Kings are not great against the spread this season. They're 4 games under 500 against the spread, but they've covered in the last 2 games since they've acquired Domantas Sabonis, and I think that makes a big difference. As much as you don't only want to read so much into recency, but the biggest thing is no Kyrie Irving, no KD, still no Ben Simmons, and Brooklyn is a league worst 20, 35-1 against the spread this season, 7-9 against the spread as underdogs, and 1-3 against the spread as home underdogs too. So for me, normally I would never, the addition of Sabonis is really the biggest thing in the other Pacers players. But I mean, looking at where the Nets are right now at home, anytime that they're at home right now, you kind of got to consider the other team covering.
All right, gentlemen. Good stuff. Appreciate your help. We're going to poke over to the PGA Tour with Jeff Ulrich right after this because Tiger Woods is back this week, but not playing. Oh, man. All right. We are back. Jeff Ulrich in the house, basketball expert, football expert, soon to be NASCAR expert. This guy wears so many hats, but he also knows a lot about golf. There it is. One more time, though, Jeff, congrats on the picking a big winner. You and Reed, right? You and Reed rolling?
I mean, look, the Scotty Scheffler win was a bit of what you call a community win. I mean, we were not the only people who were high on Scotty Scheffler, but I mean, we did like him in this range. We said, I mean, the true value, I think last week lied in guys like Scheffler who were above 2,000, and it always feels good to get on a guy who is a really good young player, is going to break through eventually, and it's always nice to just be on him the week when it finally hits. So happy to take that number. And hopefully some people jumped on it too. Obviously, a lot of people were. But, I mean, I'm not surprised. Scotty Scheffler had finished well at Phoenix last year. Yep. He's just a really solid all-around player. And that course typically rewards solid all-around players. So, hats off to him. Hats off to me, team.
Yeah, dude, definitely hats off to you. After that playoff victory, though, over the weekend, are you chasing him this week, plus 2,200 odds here at Riviera? Again, this is Tiger Woods' tournament. He's not playing, but he's hosting because, his charity is the main beneficiary of this event.
Yeah, be great to see Tiger this week.
It would be.
Mostly excited for that, to be honest. We're talking odds today, so let's just stick with the odds. I think Scotty Scheffler is a very interesting DFS play this week because I think people tend to get off the recent winners for no reason. But when we're looking at the odds, he's plus 2,200. Now you say, it's the same odds as last week, but this field is stacked. We've got like the top 10 players in the world. They're all here. And you've got Scotty Scheffler at basically the same odds. Not basically. He's at the same odds as Xander Schauffele and Rory McIlroy. And it's more about Rory. Like, I just can't bet Scotty Scheffler when he's the same price as Rory. He's almost the same price as Colin Morikawa, too. And you can go deeper, and you can find guys like Victor Hovland on the DraftKings Sportsbook, and even Brooks Koepka, who I'm not like huge on, but he looked okay in spurts last week. He's almost double Scotty Scheffler. And you do have guys like Sungjae and Jordan Spieth who are double. So, no, I don't think you bet Scotty Scheffler again. Could he do the back-to-back? Sure. I mean, he's playing really well. He's hitting the ball better than I think he ever has on the PGA Tour. But, no, there's just too many guys with inflated odds this week that are just as good or perhaps even better in Scheffler in long-term form that I think you got to hit up. So I'll say you fade him in the betting odds this week, but definitely take a look at him in DFS where he could be a great low-owned play.
I mean, Cantlay here's the reigning PGA Tour Player of the Year. Like, you can make an argument that no one is playing better golf than him right now, Jeff. Plus 1,000 odds, I don't know. Is that a little too short for your liking? It's tough to fade him right now.
He was plus 1,600 last week, and like honestly, I think I said it. I mean, like if the guy was going to top 10. I wouldn't be shocked if he won, and he almost did win. He is very close right now. But man, I got to go back to this field strength. Like Patrick Cantlay, does he deserve to be second in the betting odds? Yes. Can you bet him when Dustin Johnson is plus 1,600? When Morikawa is double the odds? When Rory is more than double the odds? I'm sorry, but like I will side with those guys. You got to go for the value in these big betting boards. You can't just chase the hot hand from one week to the next. This is a different field, a different event. Cantlay, I mean, he could be fine at this event, I guess, but we have seen him in contention here a couple times and not quite ready to shut the door. I don't know if this is necessarily the best venue for him either, just with the POA grass and a couple different factors. These greens can really give players trouble over time. Cantlay's never necessarily really popped up here. He has popped up here for a top 5 once, so I guess I should take that back. But I'll still say that just with the strength of field and with guys like Rory back there who has definitely also shown an affinity for this course, I think you got to fade him. It's not like a strong fade because I think Cantlay is very close to breaking through again, but there's just too much quality at better odds this week for me to like him.
Yeah, here's a crazy stat, too. He has finished inside the top 5 in 21 of the past 24 rounds played. So ESPN Stats and Information says only one other player in the past 20 seasons has put together a stretch like that. That is Tiger Woods. That's insane.
It's pretty insane. And, for Cantlay, I mean, regardless of whether you get on him this week, he's definitely a player you can maybe start dabbling for some futures, like in the Masters, maybe like the PGA Championship. I mean, there's outside of John Rahm, and I think Cantlay and him are near equals in this regard. There's no better, well-rounded player in the game right now. I mean, he does everything well. The putter can still get a little bit cold at times, and we've seen like players like Justin Thomas struggle with that. But when the putter gets hot again, I mean, he'll break through. There's no question. Yep. So Cantlay's a guy I'd really have my eyes on for the big tournaments this year, and we'll throw in the players there. But this week, again, I can't click him at plus 1,000.
Yeah, by the way, on the DK Sportsbook, Cantlay plus 1,600 to win the Masters, which you tweeted out yesterday. Friendly reminder, what are we, just like, we're under 2 months away from that thing.
Basically, exactly 2 months. The waste management, it's always a good reminder. When you hit the waste management, 2 months away from Augusta.
All right, so you mentioned Brooks Koepka just like moments ago, so he's plus 3,500 this week. Do you expect like a bounce-back performance with him? Maybe would you want to bet him to win, or maybe even top 5, top 10 finish here?
I mean, Brooks almost made me look really silly last week because, and I think Reed agreed with me on this, is that, we just didn't see it from Brooks. And we know that, like, when he gets in these odds, you should just kind of auto-bet him because he can just flip the script so quickly. And we saw that. I mean, obviously, going into the final round on Sunday in the final group, he didn't close the door. So that was good. Good for me. But, man, he was right there till the end. I'm actually surprised that he's plus 3,500 again this week. I mean, the sportsbook's tempting fate here right now, the DraftKings sportsbook. Like, we're getting risky here, putting Brooks Koepka at, I think, bigger odds than he was last week. This comes down to course history. We've never really seen Brooks play well at this event. I'm for one, though. I'm kind of for betting Brooks this week. I mean, I don't really understand it. We saw him play better last week. This is an event that's typically favored really good drivers of the golf ball. Brooks's driver was a bit better last week, and if that club is going, that's the one main factor that I really like to see going with Brooks Koepka, because the rest of his game will flow from there. So yeah, I'm going to say that I'm really shocked to see him at these odds. I thought he'd be under 3,000 for sure, and if you can get him at plus 3,500, like I said, more times than not, that's going to be a really good bet for you, and I think it is this week.
It was a breakout performance for Sahith Theegala. He was a big surprise. He was trying to become, I believe it was like the 6th player in the last 15 years to win a tournament on a sponsor's exemption. And he was in contention. He was 17. His drive took a bad bounce, went into the water, ended up with a bogey. But what do you think about plus 13,000 odds for him this week? Or is there someone else with wicked long odds that you'd rather sprinkle a little bit on?
So, I mean, Theegala is a player you need to, you got to give him some respect. I mean, if you don't know who he was, or you're just like more of a casual golf DFS guy, he was a very prolific winner in college. I mean, this dude was right
Pepperdine.
up there. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like he got it done. I mean, people were expecting him to kind of come out of the gates running. It took him an extra year. I mean, now he's on the PGA. He's got that top 5 finish. He's going to be very comfortable in the FedEx Cup standings. He's going to be around. This is a different beast, though. I mean, Genesis, the Riviera, coming to Riviera, it's just a different beast. It's a different course. It's really hard to get adjusted to, and we've got a strength of field here that's just kind of off the charts. So Theegala, I think, took advantage of like a really scoring-friendly course kind of in Phoenix last week, and he played great. And you're right, he did kind of get unlucky down the stretch. But, man, again, we got guys like Corey Connors, my boy, Bezadenhout at plus 1,000. Two guys down there, Emerson, who they're just higher in the world golf rankings. They're more seasoned. They've played this course numerous times. I think you got to hit up names like that. So I wouldn't go with the kind of the hot college names, the younger guys this week. I think you really got to look for players in this range with some experience. And I think those two guys, and Connors and Bezaden, are definitely top of my list. But you could even go deeper. You can take a shot with Francesco Molinari, who we've seen show up a little bit, at the Farmers too. Those are three guys I'd throw out early on a Monday morning. Well, I've just had my coffee and I'm feeling, good after the Scotty Scheffler win. I'm feeling confident.
Yeah.
But I would be. I think it's a stretch to start targeting the young players like Thigala again this week. I'll even throw out Aaron Wise as another one, a plus 20,000 down there. Hasn't started the season well, but a lot of talent. I just think you fade Thigala this week coming off the big week, even though his odds they're still looking pretty juicy.
He's the first player this season to hold at least a share of 254-hole leads, because he did it back at the Sanderson Farms Championship in October where he tied for 8th. So he's just one of those guys. Just got to finish. You got to find that closing mentality. That Mamba mentality, which he says he does use because again, Pepperdine guy. Max Homa, your defending champ here, top 20 last week, plus 5,000 odds to repeat. How do you feel?
I mean, Max Homa is a proven winner. I mean, when he gets a sniff of contention, we've seen it from him. He gets himself right in there. He is not scared to back down or anything like that. 3-time PGA winner now. And look, 2 of Max Homa's wins on the PGA Tour, they've come on the West Coast. He is developing into like a real West Coast swing guy. He's got top finishes at Pebble Beach too. So you love that. Again, these guys coming off Phoenix high finishes, though, other than Brooks, Max Homa at plus 5,000. When you've got Paul Casey down there at plus 6,000, you've got Joaquin Niemann at plus 7,000. Those are 2 names right away I gravitate towards instead of Homa. It's not that I dislike Homa, but you've got to just, when you're betting outrights, you've got to say, like, where is the good value? Where am I going to get, the most return bang for my buck? And I think it's more with Casey and even like maybe a Joaquin Niemann, who himself is a fantastic young player. So I like Homa. I again, like Scheffler, I think I like him more for DFS this week, though, than I necessarily do in betting. This is such a deep card. It's really one of the best sort of early betting events of the year. And there's some great DFS contests on DraftKings too. But for betting, we're getting such a deep field that you've got a guy like Abraham Answer down there too at plus 8,000, Emerson. This guy was on the reg at like plus 3,000 in big events last year. His odds have plummeted, which we love. You can get on him for really cheap. You got Patrick Reed down there at plus 9,000. So I'll stop there in terms of listing players. But just to prove my point, Max Homa at plus 5,000. It seems like big odds. It's maybe not that big just because of how quality the field is this week. And a couple players I like better: Paul Casey, Joaquin Niemann.
Legendary winner of the Fortnite Championship back in September. We can't forget that. But two straight or two
fantastic video game apparently.
Yeah, 2 top 15 finishes in his past 3 tournaments, and he better soak it up because they're out of California, they're off the West Coast, and going to Florida next week for the Florida Swing. Jeff Ulrich, your job here is done. Great work over the weekend. You handed out some fantastic bets with Super Bowl and also at the Phoenix Open, which the tournament was amazing. Guys ripping their clothes off. It doesn't get any better than that. All right, we got one more break to go. We got Paul on the other side to help you with NHL. All right, we got NHL Morningscape. We got about 5 minutes to go here in the show. RotoWire's Paul Bruno here to help us out. So need your best DFS and sportsbook plays tonight. 4 games to choose from. Who are you paying up for in DFS, Paul?
I'm going to go for the big boys who are shooting a lot. Matthews at $9,100, simply the top goal scorer in the league over the last 25 games at a goal per game pace. He's got over 50 shots in his last 10 games. Ditto for Kyle Connor. and he's costing a little bit less, so I would be on him tonight against Chicago. And Kaprizov for Minnesota, similarly on fire, 6 goals and 13 points, 42 shots in his last 10 games played. Let's go.
All right, big guy. Best value play in DFS. Where you looking?
Matt Boldy is enjoying a very nice run. 6 points in his last 6 games, along with 16 shots on goal. Solid two-way play. The guy's been on fire since he joined the big club. Plus 10 and 10 points in his 12 games played as a pro. Edmonton's starting to gain some traction under a new head coach. And one guy who doesn't have to worry about giving the effort every night is Zach Hyman. He cost $3,900 despite playing top 6 minutes and a power play role. Very nice matchup for him against San Jose. He's playing top line alongside Connor McDavid, whose renewed interest is going to tip the scales in a big night for Hyman, I think. I also like the way Brandon Hagel's fit in at a deep top 6 in Chicago. He's got 8 points in his last 10 games played while playing top power play minutes too, costing only $3,200. Solid under the radar guy.
Yeah, I don't know how many are confirmed right now, but is there a goalie in a good spot tonight you would consider rostering?
That's a great point, and I always refer people to RotoWire's depth charts and the starting goalies. We're on top of that all day long.
Love it.
No conclusion yet for the Edmonton game against San Jose, but I'd take whichever goalie starts in that one just because of the win probability there. San Jose's having trouble scoring Emerson in the last little while. Both of them would cost $7,900. Minnesota's hosting Detroit as well. They've won 7 of their last 8 games, and they're doing it at both ends of the ice. We know their DNA is defensive structure, though, so I like that. And they've allowed only 15 goals in that 8-game stretch, so I really like them. Whichever goalie starts, Talbot or Kakinen, they'll cost $8,100 tonight.
All right, dude, let's go over to the sports book. Give me your favorite player prop.
I go back to the 3 big shooters, Emerson off the top of the segment, and use 2 of them here again. I mentioned Matthews with an average of over 5 shots per game. The prop there is 4.5. He's going to reach that early for a plus 120 payoff. I like Kaprizov to score a goal for a plus 120 payoff. And then Connor McDavid hasn't exploded for a while offensively, and the numbers are getting more favorable for him in that regard. So I expect that to change and him to score more than 1.5 points for a plus 120 win tonight.
Your favorite game total? Which one, dude?
2 of them. I like the Leafs. They haven't been getting solid goaltending, but have been pouring a ton of shots on goal lately. Can you imagine a team shooting 101 shots over the last 2 games and losing both of them? I expect that trend will change, but the shots total will be high. And I go to the alternate prop total for 7.5 for plus 250 payoff. And I also like Chicago and Winnipeg, 2 teams that are more offensive minded and less defensively structured than you'd like, combining for more than 6.5 and a plus 125 win.
All right, dude, last one here. Favorite puck line or money line?
I'm going to Edmonton again to take the easy win in San Jose for a plus 160 win, giving the 1.5 goals on the puck line tonight. And I feel the same about the Jets at home over the Hawks. High scoring games there, and I expect a plus 145 payoff for that one.
Paul, that was great, dude. You ripped through that like an absolute champion. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Have a good day, dude. Hopefully you're back and we renew the AJ rivalry this week.
That brings fire, you know that.
All right. Thanks to all of you for watching. I'm back hosting this show tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock Eastern time. And single people, please shut up. Married people hate Valentine's Day too. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to get my wife something at Sephora, likely a moisturizing face cream. Have a great day.